Coming up next, a candidate for the most famous #2 hit of all time, and the song was almost lost in the vaults. It was written by this legendary band in the 70s. In fact, today's legendary band did about 70 takes of this song. Most of them were their very sad attempt at creating a reggae song. They crashed and burned, but on one of the takes, they did a straight-ahead rock version. Well, in the 80s, this band really needed a hit and songs for their new album. Luckily, their engineer remembered the one take they did that was a diamond in the rough. He knew it would be a hit, but going back to the vaults and finding it was like searching for a needle in a haystack. It's a story of a song that sat on the shelf for years, and then the band had to be convinced to play it straight. Find out what happened coming up on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. Make sure to subscribe below right now. Really think you'll dig this channel. Stories straight from the legends about the songs you grew up with, the soundtrack of our lives. Well, it's time for another edition of our show, #1 in Our Hearts. This is a program that honors songs that were so spectacular, so incredible, they definitely should have been #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. But for whatever reason, be it insufficient radio play or lack of marketing, label support, or just sheer stupidity, the song came up short. Today, we're taking a closer look at a song that came up just short of that coveted top spot, went to #2, from a band with one of the longest and most storied careers in rock history. It's Start Me Up from the Rolling Stones. Such a great song. Of course, from their 1982 record, Tattoo You. You know, the Rolling Stones, they're stacked when it comes to chart-dominating singles. I mean, since 1964, the Stones have had 30 top 20 hits, 23 top 10 hits, and a slew of Hot 100 #1s and near misses. Their list of #1s include I Can't Get No Satisfaction, Get Off My Cloud, Paint It Black, Ruby Tuesday, Honky Tonk Woman.
I see a red door and I want it painted black. Goodbye, Ruby Tuesday. Oh, it's all Ruby.
Brown Sugar, Angie, and of course, Miss You. Near misses included the #2 19th Nervous Breakdown.
And comes your 19th nervous breakdown.
It's also #3's Jumpin' Jack Flash and Emotional Rescue.
I'm jumping jack flash, it's a gas, gas, gas.
And today's song, Start Me Up. It's another one of those near misses. It reached #2 on the Hot 100, just barely missing out. It'd also be their last bid for chart-topping bragging rights, actually. So just for a little perspective, in the 1960s, after Satisfaction went to #1, the Stones released 17 singles, which averaged about #20 on the Hot 100. In the 70s and into the early 80s, leading up to Start Me Up, they released 18 singles, averaging a #22 spot on the Hot 100. Not a bad run at all. It was those two songs, I Can't Get No Satisfaction and Start Me Up, basically bookending the band's chart-dominating years from 1965 to 1981, to be more precise. However, post-Start Me Up would be a different story. No doubt the Rolling Stones had secured their legacy. But taking a quick look at the Billboard charts, it would seem that they were fighting an uphill battle for mainstream relevancy. And you know, that's a question that I want to come back to by the end of today's episode with you, and we'll talk about it in the comments. Was this the Stones' last stand on the US charts? Hang on to that thought. Right now, let's get into Start Me Up's album, Tattoo You. The Rolling Stones' second studio album of the 80s, Tattoo You, has admittedly been oft-hailed as their last truly great record. Divided into rockers on side A and ballads on side B, Tattoo You is actually more or less a compilation of throwaway tracks from earlier records. And with minimal new input from the band, who, by the way, at the time consisted of Mick Jagger on lead vocals, Keith Richards on lead guitar, Ronnie Wood on rhythm guitar, Bill Wyman on bass, and Charlie Watts on drums. The Glimmer Twins, they get credit for producing Tattoo You, although, as you'll see, associate producer Chris Kimsey played a big role, really big role in putting it together, the success of actually picking the song. That's due in part to Jagger and Richards, who weren't on the best of terms at this time. Richards wanted the Stones to stay true to their rock and R&B roots. Actually, Jagger was interested in implementing a more contemporary style. On top of that, Mick Jagger was also pursuing acting roles as well, and as a result, neither were interested in spending time with each other in the studio. Now, this put Chris Kimsey into a situation that necessitated some off-the-cuff improvisation. Chris, who had previously engineered 1978's Some Girls, 1980's Emotional Rescue, he came up with the idea of building the album out of older, unfinished tracks, of which there was a mountain of material to choose from. Said Keith Richards, one of the great luxuries of the Rolling Stones is they have an enormous, great, big can of stuff. I mean, what anybody hears, it's just the tip of an iceberg. You know, down there is vaults of stuff. But you have to have the patience and the time to actually sift through it. I think a lot of us would have the patience to do that. Chris Kimsey definitely took advantage of this fact for Tattoo You, saying that since he'd recorded a number of unused songs during Some Girls and Emotional Rescue, he figured there'd be other bits and pieces lying around. It would take him a couple of months, though, to go through all the tapes, but he found plenty of gems for Tattoo You. However, Mick Jagger, he remembers it just a little differently, as is the case with a lot of groups and bands. He said, Tattoo You is basically an old record. He said, it's a lot of old tracks that I dug out. They're all from different periods. Then I had to write lyrics and melodies. More than likely, it was a combined effort between Kimsey and Jagger, let's be honest. But regardless, they put together a really good mix. And today's featured track, Start Me Up, well, that came from Some Girls, or at least most recently it did. I'll explain in a minute about that. Chris Kimsey did rough mixes at Olympic Studios of the East that he found. And then after he sent them to the band members, they got to work. When completed, Tattoo You would be released on August 24th, 1981. And it was massively successful. It topped the US charts for 9 weeks, and it dominated across the globe. It featured a trio of top 20 singles: Hang Fire, Waiting on a Friend, and, of course, today's song, Start Me Up. Start Me Up opens Tattoo You with a riff that it's almost too good to be true. It's so great. However, it would be a long way to make that riff a reality. Actually, the evolution of Start Me Up isn't that easy to trace, turns out. Just like stories, memories surrounding Tattoo You, there are conflicting accounts about the song's origins. We've already heard a little bit of conflicting stories. Different band members have different memories. That being said, the song seems to have started out as a series of reggae takes in early 1975. A version called Never Stop that was recorded that year at the Black and Blue Munich sessions. However, it was then thrown away. Later, Start Me Up would be re-recorded with a completely different arrangement at EMI's Pathé Marconi Studios in Paris. That was during the sessions for 1978's Some Girls. According to Chris Kimsey, it was recorded within 24 hours of the Stones' last #1 hit, Miss You. 2 #1 hits in basically a day. The band played a massive number of takes trying to nail down this song. According to some sources, it was like 40 or 50, and others say it took something like 70 takes. Almost all these approached the song as, like I said, a reggae number. However, the song wasn't shaping up according to the band, and in particular, Keith Richards' liking. Once again, Start Me Up, it just fell by the wayside. Can't imagine when you had a riff like that shelving it. But anyway, fast forward back to the 1980-1981 recording sessions for Tattoo You. Chris Kimsey was searching through the Stones' vaults for material for the new album. And among the 70-ish takes of reggae, Start Me Up, if you will, Kimsey found 2 takes of the songs that actually had a rock vibe. As Mick Jagger remembered it, Start Me Up turned into this reggae song after 2 takes. And that take on Tattoo You was the only take that was a complete rock and roll take. And no one went back to take 2, which was the one we used, the rock track. Keith Richards' memory differed from Jagger's on the recording sequence. As he explained it, Start Me Up was buried somewhere in the middle of that marathon recording session of the track. He said just to break the tension, he and Charlie Watts, they broke into a rock and roll version of the song. You know, just kind of playing around with it. But regardless of where in the sequence the initial rock version of Start Me Up was recorded, Kimsey found it. And that was the main thing. Or if you ask Mick Jagger, he found it. And it was this basic rock version that served as the launching off point for the album. Said Chris Kimsey, I knew that Start Me Up was there and I knew it was really good. It's really what inspired me to say I'm sure I can put an album together with what's already there. That was my ground base, that song. With the rock version of Start Me Up, Kimsey was able to convince the band that the album he envisioned could work. So let's get into the song itself. Before anything else, the thing you have to begin with for Start Me Up is that opening riff. I mean, it's instantly recognizable, and it's enough on its own to secure the track as one of the Rolling Stones' all-time greatest offerings. Yeah, there are more iconic tracks from earlier in the band's career. I mean, you can't argue with Can't Get No Satisfaction, but from the 80s forward, I'm talking. This is as iconic as it gets. And, you know, as Mick Jagger would confirm, Keith Richards gets all the credit for that powerful riff. Said Mick Jagger, it was Keith's great riff, and I wrote the rest. Ronnie Wood plays the second rhythm guitar, which nicely complements and layers Keith's guitar work. Charlie's steady backbeat drumming is another key element, maintaining the song's essential groove throughout. Rounding things out is Bill's top-notch bass playing and, of course, Mick's performance, just one of the best of his career, his long career. More on that in a second. If you paid even an ounce of attention to Start Me Up's lyrics, you know it's a mixture of automotive innuendos and blatant sexual references. If you start me up, I'll never stop. Kick on the starter, give it all you've got. Seeing how this is a family channel, I won't spell it out, but let's just say that the song is loaded with these kinds of references. Classic Stone stuff. Things are running hot, going double speed. Mick sings about oil, gas, grease, mean machines, never stopping, and on and on and on. But perhaps the most memorable vocal of them all is when Mick sings, "You make a grown man cry, or don't make a grown man cry." Just brilliant. Released as a single on August 14, 1981, Start Me Up climbed to the number 2 position in the U.S. the following Halloween. It was held out of the top spot by Christopher Cross's Arthur's Theme, Best That You Can Do, parentheses song. Cross was actually at number 1 for 3 weeks. I think we could safely cut 1 week off of Christopher Cross and give it to this perfect slice of 80s rock. Back in the States, number 2 was as close as the Rolling Stones would come to topping the charts in the 80s and beyond, really. Start Me Up was the last towering peak in a mountain range of chart toppers and near misses. After Start Me Up, the closest the Rolling Stones would come to topping the Hot 100 was Harlem Shuffle in 86, and then Mixed Emotions in 1989. Both would turn in a number 5 ranking.
You slide to the lip,
The post-Start Me Up 80s would still be really good to the Stones, however. The band released 8 Hot 100 charting singles that averaged a number 20 score. It's right in line with the band's chart averages from 65 to 81, their peak. The only difference being was, a smaller sample size. However, by the 1990s, any top of the chart aspirations could only be seen in the rearview mirror for this band. Over the decade, the Stones released 8 more charting singles in the US, averaging a number 84 ranking on the countdown. Giant drop there. Clearly, mainstream tastes had changed dramatically in the 90s. So what about the 90s and beyond? Clearly, the US rock chart tells a different story with this as well. The total of 15 mainstream rock charting singles for the guys. Jagger and the boys averaged about a number 15 spot between them, climbed to number 1 twice, number 2 twice, and number 3 once. So obviously, within their own genre, Rolling Stones were still very much relevant and at times very dominant.
When love is strong and you're so sweet.
This is a top 5 Stones riff, no doubt about it. And that's really saying something. It's just one of those perfect rock songs that you know exactly what it is within like the first 2 seconds of hearing it. Something that the Rolling Stones have always been, let's face it, superior at. Having said that about the riff, though, what makes this song truly spectacular is Mick's energetic and iconic vocal. Now, I alluded to this earlier. I mean, it's interesting if you think about it. This started out as a reggae song because the more you listen to a few of those takes that they did in the song's infancy, when it's simply called Never Stop, the song's actually kind of pedestrian. It's probably because they did 70 plus takes and it got stale, which is probably why they didn't cut it in the mid-70s or after that. I guess after doing take after take after take, a song can lose that energy, right? Luckily, associate producer Kimsey had the ears to hear what it could be as a rock version, or heard the rock version in the middle of all that. I mean, think about it. The Stones could have missed out on one of their biggest songs and biggest hits because they did so many takes that it was old hat for them. How many other hits have we missed out from numerous artists because the song was unfinished or just needed a fresh perspective, a fresh set of ears? And thinking about it, to me, it's Mick who drives the song to being one of the Stones' best offerings. And although the alternate takes of the song is a reggae version, we're low energy and, like I said, pedestrian. They revved it up when they did a rock version. But when you listen to the Toots and the Maytals version, you kind of get a glimpse of what it could have been with a reggae flair. It actually rocks as a reggae song. The Stones were kind of onto something here. They always had great ideas and executed some of the finest songs of the rock era, as we've talked about. That's why they're still going strong over 60 years later. It's like the song says, these guys never stop, never stop. And thanks for watching. Leave us a comment about the Rolling Stones and Start Me Up. Such a perfect riff, perfect performance by Mick Jagger. What do you think? Was this the Stones' last stand in terms of chart dominance and mainstream relevance? Or should they get credit for turning out some top-notch tunes within their genre for decades to come? Do the charts matter? They don't anymore, but did they matter at one time? I loved them. I love listening to Casey Kasem. That's how I got into all this. Let's have a good discussion below about the Stones. If you enjoyed this episode, check out our other Stones installments, including I Can't Get No Satisfaction and Paint It Black. And make sure to subscribe below so you never miss out on our daily videos. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Till next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.